This is the highly anticipated Bo 105 for Microsoft Flight Simulator 2024, developed by Stratoware in partnership with Miltech Simulations. It's powered by the Rolls-Royce Allison 250 engine, much like the Hughes 500, but this has two of those engines. And back in 1967, that made the Bo 105 the world's first light twin-engined helicopter. It went on to serve in military, law enforcement, medical, and civilian roles, and you can simulate all of those missions with this add-on. A standout feature of the helicopter is its rigid rotor hub, which was a real innovation for its time. The fiberglass blades flex by design, and that enables aerobatics. Honestly, I think there's hours of fun just working out your airshow routine. In this review, I'll cover the range of variants and liveries, I'll take a close look at the visual detail, and I'll experience how it sounds and how it handles. Most importantly, I'll try to help you decide whether this add-on offers good value for you. This will retail for US $32.99 through independent resellers starting Friday, 22nd of May 2026. At launch, it's available only for MSFS 2024 with 2020 compatibility coming later. If you want guaranteed career mode support, the safest option may be to wait until it's released in the MSFS marketplace after the initial launch. As I record this, career mode compatibility for purchases from other resellers is not assured. This is not a paid review. Miltech provided preview builds for review purposes, and this is all subject to improvement before you hit that purchase button. I've marked the video as sponsored because Miltech is providing a giveaway copy. If you're subscribed to my Let's Fly newsletter by Friday the 5th of June 2026, you'll go into a draw and I'll randomly select one winner to receive the product for free. Thanks to Stratoware and Miltech for making that possible. So let's see what the Bo 105 is like, and let's fly. So here is what the Stratoware and Miltech Bo 105 looks like in your MSFS 2024 hangar. And you get, extraordinarily, I think 12 different variants that I'm scrolling through here. So what I'm going to do is really quickly shoot through all of these so you can get a bit of a sense of what you've got available in terms of liveries under all of these great many variants. Now, what variants allow a developer to do is to use the same basic airframe, perhaps the same basic performance, but bolt on different add-ons, extras onto the model so that you get a bit of a personalization and customization. And one really great example with this very first one here, the military anti-tank guided missile edition, is that we've got a whole different structure up here. We've got these sort of bolted on antennas. We've got these bolted on pylons down here, a different structure up in this part of the helicopter. So it really allows quite a lot of customization onto the look of your different machines before we even get into the liveries. Now, two notes here. The missiles or any kind of weaponry in this add-on are only cosmetic. There's no firing animations, there's no explosion animations, nothing like that. Weapons in the Bo 105 add-on are purely cosmetic. And just one more point before I get into looking at all the different variants. In the aerobatic variant, people are going to be asking, can I fly the Red Bulls aerobatic team livery? Answer is, for commercial reasons, it's not possible for Miltech and Stratoware to sell you a Red Bulls livery. That's my understanding of the situation. However, I do understand that a paint kit has been made available to the community, and so I would say probably from day one, you're going to be able to find yourself perhaps looking at something like flightsim.to, liveries that do what you want them to do, let's say. So let's really quickly shoot through some of these 50 different liveries that we have in here. For the anti-tank helicopter, we've got Swedish and German liveries available for you here. The medical variant comes with a medical cabin and some easy clean vinyl seats up here at front, so you'll see that they change from variant to variant as well. Nice little touch of detail. We have German, English air ambulances, a Swiss machine there, a couple of American machines, and a Dutch livery too. Mountain Rescue variant also has the medical cabin, maybe a couple of small changes on the outside. And again, here we have a German and Swiss livery for you. The sling load variant starts off with this one. I had to look this up, so this will be immediately apparent to viewers, I'm sure, but this is a Jurassic World helicopter, or based on one of those fictional helicopters, so you can have a bit of fun at that Jurassic Park add-on with this machine if you like. We've also got some German sling load helicopters here, a Spanish Army one, an Argentinian one, a couple of American private ones. This November 8809 Whiskey helicopter is the machine from which Echo 19 recorded the sound pack for this add-on, so we'll talk more about that later on. Notice also that these two have the higher skids as well compared to those, so that's also included in these variants and liveries. And we've got Polish and a couple of lovely Australian liveries over there. By the way, each of these variants tells you on the variant page what is included. The police helicopter has the flare camera system that you might be familiar with from the MH60 pack, and a few other cosmetic bits of police equipment. So let's just have a quick look at the liveries for this one. And this really tests my knowledge here. I think this is a Venezuelan helicopter. We've got some German police there, British, Argentinian, American. That New York City police variant I think will be of interest to some people, and another Dutch one, and also Greek as well, and a nice retro livery there. The broadcast variant has that flare camera again, so you can imagine yourself steering a camera from that if you've got enough hands for that sort of activity. There we have some German liveries again, a British, Argentinian once more, and an Australian livery there, Heli West. Nice. The tall skids variant seems to me to be a bit of a repeat of the sling load machines, although I guess without the sling equipment. You notice that there are some double ups here in the liveries, so what you'll find is that you can actually fly the same livery but in different variants, if that's important to you. So you'll recognize some of these liveries that I've already called out. There's that 8809 Whiskey helicopter again, and so on. So there are all the liveries we get in a tall skids variant without the sling load equipment. Medical tall skids, similar again. We see a few more repeats here, speaking to the variation that you can employ yourself in how you'd like to experience your BO 105 here in MSFS 2024. I think there is definitely a new one down here, this Mexican machine down here. Aerobatic, we find we've got a 50th anniversary livery there, a classic Messerschmitt Bulkoff Blom livery there for you to enjoy. Contradicting what I said there earlier, these historic Red Bulls liveries, I'm not quite sure what the situation is with those, but those are in the build that I've got, and a lovely New Zealand helicopter as well, which I believe lives on to this day in Ardmore. The military variant is one that is equipped with flare dispensers there on the side, not weapons though, and we have a Swedish variant and two Dutch ones, one of which wears a UN livery for the work that did historically. Civilian livery, again, we see a couple of repeats here, so that is without the tall skids or without the sling load equipment, so I'm just going to scroll through those along the bottom there, and you can see if you can pick the helicopter livery that you're interested in as I get right down to the end here. The floats variant, you might imagine, is often involved in marine work, and so we've got some Spanish Guardia Civil liveries here, Chilean, Swedish, Canadian. I know there'll be a bit of interest in this Canadian Coast Guard livery, so I'll just let you have a quick look at that one. Irish 2, more British, more American, and another Dutch one. By the way, these floats do deploy. If you happen to touch the water, the floats will sort of cosmetically deploy, and so you can imagine yourself sitting on the water with an emergency float deployment. And the last type of variant is the snowshoes variant, so you can imagine yourself doing some snow work in this one. We see a few more repeats here, so yet more configurability in your BO 105 fleet as I just scroll through all of these for you. So those are the variants and liveries. Let's get into the simulator and see what it's like to walk around. And for this one, you can see if I do a search for BO105, once we've got the add-on installed, we get this Teufelsgraben landing zone. This is the site of quite a famous video with some low and fast flight action. So this is the mini scenery that is included with this pack. And here is our lovely BO105 in its walkaround, guys. There are the tie downs, which take them back down to the skids there. So let's just start to get these off. Coming in a bit closer, we've got pitot down here, or is it static? There we go. This one's got a very weathered looking paint job there, a very well utilized piece of military equipment, this one. And these ground handling wheels, these are just cosmetic at this time. I'm not sure if they've got plans to add something in the EFB, for instance, to be able to navigate yourself around on the ground with the taxi wheels on, so I'll just remove those. Now let's just come to these weapons pylons in here. We can right click and left click to cycle through some options here. So there's a sort of a cosmetic German livery down there, and we've got some sort of empty missile tubes there for imagining that you're flying that sort of flight. Again, there is no animation or functionality around the weapons systems. They are cosmetic only. And up here we've got the engine covers, removing those, very good. We'll just very dangerously come around here at the back, and I can open up the clamshell doors there to reveal that BO105 innovation, that sort of loading through functionality that it has down there. A little Easter egg there, which I'm not going to zoom in on. I'll let you discover that for yourself once you get into this helicopter for yourself. We can unscrew that fuel there. There's no other functionality in terms of being able to sort of look at the fuel level or anything, but they've put in a nice animation there. And I think that's everything done. Oh, and I do like this falcon motif on the front of this machine. And while I'm up here, I can just show you that this panel opens up the hatch, and that's where we see the battery compartment. And if I were to connect the external power unit, that would plug into this port here. Now on the ground in Spain, where we can have a look at some of the exterior details that might not have been apparent from the walk around. And let's just get in real close here. Something I've noticed is working so well with not just Miltech, but a lot of developers, but this is a great example of it, are doing such a great job with the use of decals in here. So things like rivets and these higher resolution text typography on the exterior of the helicopter are just rendered beautifully in the simulator these days. I'm getting a real high resolution sense here, and it's only when we get this close that we see any pixelization at all in the color scheme there. This is such a step ahead of where I have seen previous Miltech liveries. Really high quality stuff. And let's get and have a look at the two-bladed tail rotor assembly here. Notice that I can use my feet on the pedals here to turn these around. There's a couple of stretchy little details in here. So, for instance, if I get into that control link right up there, you can see that that's kind of stretching rather than animated at its base. But look, for some kind of essential level animations on the tail rotor, that's not bad. So a bit of attention given there, which I'm liking. Lots of detail in the panel work here. Again, those rivets to me look like they're using the new decal system that MSFS 2024 offers. Not quite sure how that's going to end up looking in 2020. Let's just continue our fly around here. Different materials and paints used there on the outlets, and the main rotor assembly too. This is the innovation in the BO105. So we have a rigid rotor system here, which means that each blade is not free to lead and lag in the cycle, and it's not free to flap up and down either. Of course, the pitch changes according to the cyclic or collective controls, but those other effects are rigid because instead of using a metal blade, they use a composite blade which flexes. So that was the innovation in 1967 for the BO105, and it's that innovation that allows it to get into some of the fun stuff that we can do with it here in the simulator, such as aerobatics. One thing I do note here is that though these materials and detail and modeling and textures are looking really nice here in the rotor hub, we don't have any animation. I'm pulling the collective right now, no change there. I'm moving around the cyclic right now, no change there. So at this point in time, no animations in the main rotor. We do have coning in the main rotor now, something that people have criticized Miltech for neglecting in the past. That has been addressed in this add-on. Something I just wanted to show to you, I hope this is apparent to you, but if I just look at the margin on the light there, we can just see a little bit of deformation in the panel work. I can see some here as well. And what that shows to me is it gives me the effect that we're dealing with a well-used, perhaps even slightly battered aircraft. It's quite apparent down here in the green on those clamshell doors as well. The panel is not smooth and fresh. It's been well used, and there's perhaps, I don't quite know how they do it technically, maybe a shader effect. Dan from Miltech told me that this was the result of quite a significant amount of work, but it really gives a beautiful aged appearance there. I'm really liking that. I think they've done really well there. And just as we get close into, I assume it's the acrylic there, we get that nice MSFS 2024 effect there, that sort of dimensionality in the panels there with the light playing through there as we see the sun moving across it. That looks really great, I think, as well, and a good use of the new features in the simulator. There's our floats all packed up there, and nice details here on the fuselage. I'll sort of come through and we can admire things like the detailing there in the beacon. Just maybe a little oddity there in that part there. I can see a little bit of polygon in this area that we might not be viewing close up all the time, and maybe that's just interrupting some of the livery there as well. Perhaps a slightly concerning thing I see here in MSFS 2024, the helicopter seems to be moving very slowly along the ground. I would think that's a bit of a base simulator issue, but it does give me a chance to here to show you that there's not neglect in this area here. Lots of detail put in to a very fine level down here. Lots of good work again on the decal work there. High resolution features on the livery, and overall I think this is the best exterior detail I've yet seen on a Miltech aircraft, and I think the presentation of this exterior is actually very high quality. And here we are in the interior of our floats version. I should just mention the engine covers do not open on the exterior, and as far as I can tell, there's no engine or gearbox modeling, so those are not features in the external model. Here's what the interior looks like. This one has got some passenger seating in the back here. Looks like there's nice materials in use on what looks like those leather seats. Oh, nice BO 105 logo on the chairs there. First time I noticed that. So nice details in there. I think good materials in use there across what can sometimes be a bit of a featureless expanse on things like ceilings and wall panels, but that's looking good up there. And let's come through to the business end of operations up here as I just glide through to the cockpit, again admiring some of the materials in use here. So pretty simple overhead panel, just with some switches up the top there, and the power condition levers. We'll get to those shortly. And just admiring, I think, some of the, again, the interior details. What you'll find when you go from interior to interior is that these materials used up here are different, even from livery to livery. So this leather appearance here, I think, is looking pretty nice. The light, this is moving quite beautifully across those. And we've got a basic radio panel in this variant. More avionics. Our switches and fuses here for the BO 105. And as we come up and look really close up at the gauges, you wouldn't normally have your head up this close to them, I think, but you can see that if you were to put your head up that close, you are rewarded with some very high resolution work in here. There is no pixelization apparent to me at all in any of that very fine text at work there. And I believe, well, Miltech and Stratoware are saying this, that they have done a lot of work with optimization so that people with different standards of hardware configuration will have their needs met. Really nice work, I think, in portraying a weathered and well-used helicopter here. I think that's looking really good. For some reason, this helicopter is not quite stable on the ground, and we're getting some things knocking around here, but it's still good enough for me to show you the dimensionality in some of these instruments. The artificial horizon in there, you can see, is multi-layered and really beautiful appearance there. Like you can see a lot of work's been put into that, a lot of love, and I think that's actually looking really, really nice up here. The combing that surrounds the main instrument panel is selectable, so I've had mixed reviews on this one from viewers. This one's a little bit reflective. It's, in Dan's words from Miltech, a very highly weathered piece of equipment. This one, where people have had their hands on it over the years and it's become very weathered, but got a bit of a shiny sort of pattern out there on the exterior. But you can see it's also dimensional, so it's not just one plasticky model. You can see in here on the edges that the reflectivity doesn't extend all the way over there, and so it just gives a sense of a layered and weathered piece of gear. And also I can switch this every variant. I believe I can just switch that combing type with that, and we get this slightly more quality leather kind of appearance there, which I think is still pretty effective. So yeah, that's your choice which one you fly with. There's our cyclic. I'm not sure those buttons are functional. Our collective is way down here. Those switches are animated, but you notice there is not a twist grip on this collective, so that's the way this model works. And we can get right down here and enjoy, oh yes, the fire extinguisher right beneath our legs there, and possibly a few more little Easter eggs there that I'll let you discover for yourself. And that's what the animation looks like there on those tail rotor pedals. I think you can get the confidence that if a developer has spent this amount of time looking at details like how these ventilation pipes look and the different materials and textures there, then you can have confidence that they have paid a lot of attention to how the ambience of this helicopter is going to feel when you're inside it. And let's go to Farnborough with this medical variant, this Great Western Air Ambulance charity livery. I love that fluorescent colour, and the decal along the side there looks really great. So I'll just manually open up all the doors here, and let's just go inside, and I'll show you that, yes, there's those easy, clean fabrics on the pilot and co-pilot chairs there. And here is our medical equipment lined up here. I don't think there's any click spots. I'm actually in the exterior view right now, but I don't think there's any click spots there. I had a little bit of a search around before. Yeah, a bit of a tight squeeze there for anyone lucky enough to have a ride in the back of a BO-105 ambulance variant. And that's what it looks like with the clamshell doors open. This device down here, there's an air dam, which I think cleans up some of the air flowing over the tail rotor, so that's what the purpose of that device down there is. Now, to get these doors closed, I believe I do have to do it manually. I think I need to actually pop outside to do that. This one's a bit of an awkward one because I need to just get that there in between, I believe. You can close the clamshell doors from the inside. There's just a general kind of click spot down there, so that works. These here are the engine covers that if I were in the outside view, I could click those and they would go back on. So yeah, no click spots over here. I have not seen any people figures in this add-on yet. I will just show you the flight performances, mass and balance. This part of the code seems to be overridden, so I load in there, but you notice that the weight just changes again. So I think there's some other code that controls how this weight is distributed. I think the purpose of that is that you would be able to select in some other part of the simulation, maybe clicking on or off an external detail, for instance, or it being loaded by virtue of it being part of a variant, and that would distribute the weight for you. So I noticed that this quick fill doesn't do anything. If I just try and put in 91 kilos here, what happens? That's 9 kilos. If I load that, it just goes back to 0 again. So same with the cargo. I think I can just generically fill cargo like this and it doesn't get overridden by any other code, but that's the way that's working at the moment. I'm not seeing any visual change at the moment. Now, you probably got a glimpse a moment ago. There is a tablet and they've integrated it into the native EFB. I kind of like that. I like the idea of people not having to code their own EFB animations and graphics every single add-on, so integrating it into the native MSFS 2024 EFB I think makes a lot of sense. When we get in here, you see the tablet's actually reasonably simple. Configure, it's just a bunch of switches, so you can see I'm just changing the combing there. I can turn on and off the turn coordinator on there. Random baggage I think is just weight, I believe. It doesn't seem to change the interior loadout or anything, and not in this air ambulance version anyway. I haven't tested all the variants for that. And just some of those exterior details that we can click on and off on the outside we can add there. Wire strike protection if you like that sort of thing. There you go, there's your sharp knife-like devices on the front of the helicopter. Gives it a bit of an aggressive feel, doesn't it? Some people will like that. And then we can toggle on and off those covers. Functions, it's just a list of bindings so that you can bind all of these to do the functions that are listed there for you. So I suppose that's helpful having a in-app reference for that. Support nothing there, just working for me at the moment in this pre-release version. So we're all closed up, weight more or less full, just a little bit low, and let's see what we can do about getting this machine started up. And this part of the video is recorded a couple of days later than everything else because I've just received a new preview build. A couple of things have been fixed. I wanted to do this very fairly, so if you notice anything different, like the exterior or any other interior detail that escaped my attention, it's because this is a different build. So let's run the checklist. The covers are all removed, the ground handling wheels are off, the engine air intakes are clear, the main rotor blades are fine, the tail rotor's fine, the static ports and the pitot tube are clear. The power levers, okay, let's talk about these power levers. Upstairs we go. We have 2 power levers and we've got a guard for each one. So if I mouse wheel on, I'm actually going to start engine 2 today. If I mouse wheel up on that, it doesn't advance because this guard is out. So I push that, then I advance that, the guard pops out again, and I can advance all the way up to flight. This is a bit of a difference from what the real aircraft is in my understanding. This is not an axis, it is digital at the moment. So you can see when I just go up on the mouse wheel slightly, the lever advances all the way from idle to flight. What that means is that we can't advance it smoothly, and we might, if you want to get this onto a hardware controller, you might not be able to put it on an axis. In fact, I don't think you can. You will need to get the guard onto a hardware controller and then get the lever itself onto a digital controller, so you're just clicking forwards to advance it from off to idle, and then from idle to flight, and then backwards again later on. So that is just a limitation with the way Miltech and Stratoware have decided to model this. In real life, it would be click once to get through into idle, and then advance slowly on an axis to go from idle to flight, not modeled in this add-on. So the power levers are both off. Rotor brake lever. That's down here beside the seat down here, and I've got that on an axis, which never seems to work quite well. It's not limited to just this aircraft. I noticed that, that's me trying to pull the axis. It might be better if this were on a digital on-off switch, so your rotor brake is located down there. That is down. Circuit breakers. Now, in real life, I've seen pilots just run their fingers across here just to check that all of these are down, and they are. I've not tested the functionality of every single one, so we're just going to say that they are all in. Now, battery switch on. So we've got a switch here. Towards me is battery off, and away from me is battery on. And then towards me is EPU on, and towards me is EPU off. So what I could do before going back here onto the checklist is I could click on the EPU. I notice this is not lighting up at the moment. It was previously for me. And what this should do is put the EPU outside. Let's have a look. There is the external power unit. It's floating off the ground a little bit. I'm sure they'll fix that up. And you can see it's plugged in nicely there to the front of the aircraft. Excellent. So that all looks really good. It's just that with the EPU on, it's just not powering up the panel or the helicopter at the moment. So that was okay a couple of builds ago. I feel they're probably going to get this sorted out pretty soon. So I'm going to click off that EPU even though it's dark. And now we're back to where we are on the checklist as if we're doing a battery start. So battery switch on, here it comes. The panel starts up and we start getting things like the fuel pressurizing there and some volts here on the meter. So external power unit not required. Voltmeter, 24 volt minimum. If this were too low, so 15, 20, 25, if this were, I think, 25 volts, it says actually 24 minimum, it would not be able to spin the turbine fast enough during the startup, and therefore there wouldn't be enough airflow through that turbine, and you might risk a hot start. So that's why we check that the volts are sufficiently high there. So we are now up to warning and caution lights test. So I just hold down this button here and all the lights light up and we get that low RPM warning as well. So that's all fine. Just while I'm here, I might just take the opportunity just to turn up those instrument lights a bit so we can better see the indicators here. Oh, and while I'm in here, you notice that the PMS 50 GTN 750 is available for you to use with this add-on. I'm not going to be touching this GPS at all in this demo, so yes, you can use the PMS 50. Now I'm up to engine fire warning lights test, so I just click this one, beautiful glowing lamp there, and click this one, beautiful glowing lamp there. No audible warning, I'm not sure if that's accurate or not, so a real pilot or someone familiar with this type in real life might comment on that. Am I supposed to get some sort of audible alarm there? Next is this special dial here. I'll tell you about this in a moment. First, we're just going to test it. This is the mast moment indicator. I hold down that button, it goes all the way out to the top. I release that button, it goes all the way down. Great. So what is a mast moment indicator? This is an indicator important for helicopters equipped with a rigid rotor system. And what this does is it measures stress between the rotor itself and the rotor mast. I'm going to be simplifying this a little bit. And this tends not to be very important when we're flying around because forces imposed from the rotor down into the helicopter fuselage effectively follows the rotor through the rotor mast, right? So we sort of dangle off the rotor and the forces imparted from the rotor, that rigid rotor system, are effectively absorbed and transmitted through into the helicopter. When we're on the ground, though, it means that because we are earthed, we can't move around, right? The helicopter fuselage can't move around as much whilst we are planted on the ground. And so this becomes more important. And so when I were to move around the controls like this, that's now aft, this is now left, this is now right. We can see that this, you also saw the camera move around by virtue of either Chase Plane or FS Realistic Plus. We can see that this measures the amount of force that would put through into the sort of system in between the rotor and the rotor masts. So we don't want to exceed up into here. Even with aerobatics, I've found that I'm really still in the green most of the time. So no issue here with this model in terms of what I've yet discovered. Fuel quantity indicator, tanks 1 and 2 and supply as loaded. Okay, we've got two indications here. We've got a main tank over here, which that meter is pointing, saying it's full. And we've got a supply tank over here with that meter there indicating that that is full. So what the main tank does is feeds fuel into the supply tank. And the supply tank, pressurized, sends fuel into the two engines. So the supply tank is smaller than the main tank, and with the pumps that I'm about to show you, the main tank keeps the supply tank hopefully full the entire time as the main tank slowly declines. So that's how all of that works. Now, we've got this test up here to cycle each transfer and boost pump to verify the pressure. So all pressures now off up here on the fuel pumps upstairs and verifying that we've got no pressure down here. That is what we want to see. I think in the real helicopter, sometimes the supply tank can drain back into the main tank. Not sure if that's modeled here. So main tank 1 pressure, and we've got a little bit of pressure there on engine 1. Main tank 2 pressure, and we've got a little bit of pressure there on engine 2. Supply tank 1 comes on, and we've got lots of pressure then getting into engine 1. That's what we would expect. So most of the fuel pressure then is supplied from the supply tank directly into the engine. So that's right. And supply tank for engine 2 is giving us that lovely pressure into engine 2. So that's all working. Flight controls, there's our cyclic, there's our pedals moving at the bottom there. Here's our collective coming up. Good, all right, that's all working. And again, we would have seen those changes being made there, indicating what the force would be on the mast moment indicator if the actual rotor were running. Cyclic stick center cyclic trim, that's just to click on my hat switch, and that's all fine. All right, let's get to the starting engine checklist. Rotor area, fire guide, we're all done there. So we'll just yell out, clear. And that means we can bring on the anti-coal light. Upstairs, anti-coal light comes on. Next, all 4 pumps on. 1, 2, 3, 4. All 4 pumps are on. Turbine outlet temperature, confirm cold start. Okay, so the outside air temperature is about 20 degrees. That is reflected correctly on these 2 TOT gauges. So we've got a little stack here of 2 gauges. We've got turbine outlet temperature for engine 1, and then beneath it, N1, or the first stage of the turbine RPM, that is expressed just below it, and that's repeated over here for engine 2. And I'll say this now in case it all gets a bit fast later on. The rotor percent RPM, this is actually 3 gauges in here, so we measure N2 for both engines, and then also a rotor RPM, 3 needles in this gauge. And over here, torque, we've got 2 needles on that gauge there. So we've confirmed we're doing a cold start. Next is to look at these starter switches. So 2 starter switches for our 2 engines. In the aft position here, it's vent. Then the middle position is continuous ignition. And advanced all the way forwards is on. And that's when the starter will start up the engine. By the way, in the real helicopter, I think there would be some tests here around hydraulics and making sure that the controls can actually move the swash plate and therefore get some control effectiveness. Apparently not modeled in this add-on, so we've skipped over hydraulics. Back to the starter though, the actual point here is that we need to open the starter switch guard. There's the guard there that is open. The guard there is to keep it in continuous ignition when you're flying. So I'll just read ahead here on the startup procedure. We're going to put that into on. We're going to watch the N1 spool up. I'm going to start engine 2 first, just because that's what I feel like doing today. So we're going to wait for that to get to 12 to 15% here on the N1. Then we're going to go upstairs and we're going to move the power lever to idle. We're going to watch what happens here with the turbine outlet temperature, make sure it doesn't get too high. Then we're going to check that the N2 and the rotor RPM are increasing. So that is the flow for the startup. We'll check that we've got engine oil pressure, and we'll check that the starter switch comes back to continuous, and then we'll close that guard. And finally, for the engine 2 startup, the first engine I'm doing today, we will get the generator on. So let's run it, and I'm actually quite happy to notice that here on the battery volts we're down to about 28 now. So it actually has lost some volts, and that is a good sign. So that is modeled. I'm really pleased with that. The bus bar current indicator seems to indicate to me that we've got some amps on the bus, therefore that's what's discharging the battery. So yeah, that's really great to see that modeled. So we're still above 25, and that's good for a start. So let's get this thing happening. I'll take you outside later on and you can hear all the startup sounds separately without me talking, but let's get this on. Get a lot more draw here, good. There's our sound. There's 10% N1, 12, upstairs now, advancing, getting that guard in, advancing to idle. We watch the TOT rise. The engine N2 has come up faster than the rotor speed. That's good. So the gearbox and clutch is just doing its work now to synchronize those. 400 degrees Celsius on the turbine outlet temperature. Not very hot. I might have expected that getting a couple of 100 degrees hotter than that at least. And we're advancing here. Oh, a bit of a peak there in the N1. Is that because the fuel control system is... Okay, and the torque has just gone through the roof there. The torque has gone past 80%. And it advanced the N1 all the way up to 100 in trying to bring the rotor speed up. So my conclusion there is that the governor system in this is not quite right in the add-on. Everything's kind of working, but that just brought it up too fast. We don't want to see the torque exceeding over here, and we don't think we needed to see the N1 come up anywhere past 60% when we're in idle. That should have stayed at 60 and the rotor should have slowly sped up. Next, engine oil pressure. We've got positive pressure here on 2, and we've got oil temperature coming up as well, and a slow rise here in the gearbox also. So this one actually has brought us back to continuous ignition. I can close the guard. I can bring on the generator, and again we've lost a little bit more voltage here. That's great. I'm glad to see that modeled. Bring on the generator. Now we see negative amps on the bus bar current, so I think what that means is that we're now charging the battery. That's actually already popped back up to 29. I wonder what happens if I take that off again. Yeah, okay, interesting. So that seems pretty good. That all looks like it's sort of wired up correctly now. Now we can do our second engine, so we just repeat all of that. We bring the starter up to on. There's our lovely startup sound. Looking for 12 to 15 on here. There's 12. Upstairs we go. Putting the guard in, advancing the lever. And what happens here? N1 That's N2 coming up very fast. It's ahead of N1 at the moment. I think that's because the gearbox is feeding back through, I guess, a clutch to bring up the N2 part of the engine 1 turbine up to synchronize with the other engine and the rotor. And as the N1 continues to build up down here, again, TOT has only come up to, I think, about 400%. Torque, didn't really see any movement there. I guess there's not much of a torque demand on engine 1 because we've already got the rotor up to its idle speed there. And that kind of looks like we're all synchronized now. So I would have thought that we wanted to get this N1 up to 58. Well, you can see the green minimum idle RPM is at about 58. These engines seem to be only getting up to about 55 or 56 there. I note there is an engine trim switch down here. It's just a bit unclear to me what it's actually doing. I do notice on the EFB app that they have put some bindings here for engine 1 increase and decrease and engine 2. However, I'm now holding down that input and I'm not seeing any change here on engine 1. I think this might still be a bit of a work in progress. At the moment, apparently I cannot beep up these two idle trims to get up to 58%, which is what I thought would have been required in this startup. So I just came back down here just to check that the two generators were in fact on. Yes, they are. After EPU start, not relevant. We didn't do an EPU start, so we're still forward here on the battery switch. Warning lights, we don't have any warning lights up here, so that's good. Hydraulic 2 warning light is off. Engine anti-ice, not required today. Common nav radio is not required today. All other instruments, just fine. So takeoff checklist, all doors are closed, all warning lights are off. Power levers, we move to flight. As I said before, we would do this smoothly in real life. I'll just advance engine 1. We get a low RPM warning, but here is a bug. These two engines are tied together at the moment. So we get a low RPM warning and we don't get engine 1 advancing until I go back upstairs, engine 2, and now they both come up. So that's just not quite right. Once this comes up here, and by the way, again, we're at 100% N1. We've passed 90% torque. I think this automated system is just pushing that way too hard. Way too hard. So that just needs to come up slower, in my opinion. It lacking a axis for me to modulate that slowly. I need the automated programming there to do that much more gradually. So power levers have been moved to flight. All engine and gearbox readings are in limits. So green, 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 and green. Perfect. Green, 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 green. All right, we're all fine there. Fuel quantity is still fine. Starter switch, that starter one did finally come back to continuous ignition. In a previous build it wasn't, so that's good. And those starter guards are closed, and we'll do our hover checks in a moment to see what it's like to hover. But you have a choice right now. You can spend the next 90 to 120 seconds just continuing with the video. I will demonstrate the startup sounds from the exterior without me talking. Otherwise, you can skip ahead with the chapter marker and get into some hover tests with me. Well, let's get ourselves off this ground. I've actually brought the helicopter over to this windsock with 12 knots coming there from the west. That's just going to help me just assess what we're like in a hover here with this machine. So, if you are coming from a Miltech Chinook or a Miltech MH60, this is a more manual helicopter, and if that's the extent of your helicopter experience so far, you might find this a bit more challenging because we have to fly it manually. So that requires us, when we pick up with this anti-clockwise rotating rotor when viewed from above, it requires us to have some left pedal in. So there it is there, I'll put the input and viewer in there so you can see. And that will mean the helicopter moves off to the right, which means we need some left cyclic in to counteract that translating tendency. So I've got a strong headwind now. I think probably neutral cyclic, otherwise it might be aft cyclic, a little bit of aft cyclic in normal conditions. We'll experiment further with that. I have put a full load in the helicopter. I should also just pay attention to this torque gauge here. We're allowed to stay in this green torque arc for as long as we like. There is our maximum continuous power with 2 engines, and there's 2 more markers there for when we've got 1 engine inoperative. So we're allowed to increase or exceed the torque when we've got 1 engine out. So that's not the case today. Both engines are operating, and so let's pick up. I'm going to look out. That's the key when you're picking up one of these manual helicopters, is to not look down, look out. I'm looking behind the windsock. I feel, as I'm starting to pull collective now, feeling what it wants to do. Maybe not too much left pedal this time because we've got the strong headwind. So it just comes off the ground there, tiny bit of left pedal in. Don't want to actually take out that windsock or take myself out on it. So I'll just give it a bit of space there, come back a bit, let the wind just grab me and pull me back. That's a little bit safer. All right, so what are we thinking of this hover? Let's come a little bit further over here, get the windsock right in front of me. Not bad. It's reasonably stable. It's not quite as stable as the MSFS 2024 default Cabri G2. Maybe not quite as stable as the revised Tauxhanger 500C, which is a little bit, I think, softer and easier after their big update. This is a little bit more of a challenge. I'd say it's a fair challenge in hover. I'm feeling like you can do this. We've just got a little bit of up and down happening. That seems to be a bit of a feature of MSFS 2024. We don't get the strongest ground effect. Suspiciously weak ground effect. If I just lower a little bit more collective, we'll see if the ground effect will catch it. So we're going down now. Yep, there we go. It did get it, but that was really only a millimetre of collective, if that. Very small amount of collective. And we sort of lost at least half of our height there. Alright, so let's just do a couple more tests here. The tail rotor points off from the left side of the fuselage and points left. It's a pusher. So if I allow myself to, in fact I'll just do this so I can keep the windsock in sight at all times, it'll be a bit easier, so I'll do this as a turn about a point. That point being the windsock, which I'm again getting too close to, so coming over here, and we'll get onto this quarter here. Now, what do you suppose that might mean for the effectiveness of the tail rotor? Matthew, stop getting so close to that. What it means is that we will need less left pedal in because the tail rotor is now, with this 12 knot wind coming through, getting pretty close to being in effective translational lift. So that means it's just in very nice clean air. The wind's blowing from the left through the tail rotor, and I don't need very much left pedal on that quarter. So we'll come around again. So watch the torque when we come back around over here. I apply left pedal now. Torque went up as I did it, I think. Let's try that one more time. So right, just on the spot this time. Now I'll use left, and we see the a bit of a torque spike there. Good to be aware of. Not much of an issue here. I've got to say, maybe just a little bit suspicious about the amount of torque required to do this manoeuvring right now. So that torque looks like it's only about 50% on a fully loaded helicopter. Now, I actually am not a BO-105 pilot, so I don't know. I'd be interested to know People, if you have experience with a helicopter of this type with 2,400 kilograms takeoff weight, would you be expecting to see more torque on that gauge than that? Because this is the least efficient form, the least efficient phase of flight. And I would have thought we'd be pulling a bit more than that, but I don't know for sure. So, you know, let's keep trying with these tests. This is nice. I'm enjoying this. It feels good. It feels right. It feels natural. So this time, this should require more left pedal. It's certainly, I'm glancing down at the input viewer there. It looks like this is about 40% required on the left pedal. I can feel under my foot that it needs more. That's because the wind's coming from behind the tail rotor and therefore needs more pitch to just maintain its effectiveness there. So the more I look off at the horizon, I'm just looking over the top of the console there to just maintain the attitude, and then the flight becomes smoother when I'm not chasing other stuff, and we get a nicer hover. So pretty happy with that. I am actually really liking the feel of this. I like the visibility for this kind of work. I can see down. Maybe if I came forward a bit more during an approach, I'd be able to see down there a bit more. Yeah, that's feeling pretty good. Speaking of, let's actually leave that windsock now, and I will just do a cheeky little departure over this way. Air taxi poses no real trouble here. I haven't really pulled any more collective, so you can see the torque is still at about that 50% mark. So there's 60 knots already. I will just try to hold that 60 knots as we, again, I'm just leaving the collective in the same position, use that speed and that power to translate into height, which I think I'm doing slightly better right about now. So that's all good. It feels pretty easy to get going. So this one does have a balance ball. It's clickable on the EFB. Quite hard to read, if I'm honest. Yes, I can just see it going off to the right now. So I think I had it centralized there, but it was just very hard to read. It's just meandering off to the right now. Probably because we've got that phenomenon of one skid hanging a bit lower than the other. That's just a helicopter thing. Maybe it's a bit exaggerated in MSFS 2024. So 100 knots achieved, going downwind now. No trouble at all. So our ground speed's probably quite high right now, getting up to 120 knots probably, ground speed. I feel myself getting sort of blown down quite strongly actually, and you can see the attitude is a bit higher on the nose. So let's come around and do a 180 and get onto a short final. A little bit of left pedal required there. That balance ball is very hard to see. What I'll try and do is get us onto the numbers here. This is a bit of an approach test, so if I lower the collective now, you can hear the gearbox coming up in speed. Actually, the numbers are a bit further down. So I'll keep that speed up. I'm going to try and do quite a dramatic slowing down here. Deceleration. We'll see what... Can we overspeed the rotor? I'm getting a sound effect from the gearbox that suggests the rotor speed would be coming up with that maneuver, which is correct, but I didn't see much of a change on the N2 there, or the rotor percent RPM. It looked like it was pretty much locked on 100, so I'm not quite sure what that means. I wonder if that reading is 100% accurate. Or maybe it's not modelled. Interesting that the sound was modelled. But maybe the meter did not seem to be. Very easy to get the speed up here. It's beautiful, really. You just give it a suggestion and off it goes. Seems quite powerful. Lovely Wanaka, New Zealand, and I've just had to restart this flight, which was supposed to be about demonstrating the aerobatic performance of this machine, but I forgot to load the smoke up. So, on the ground, you need to come outside in the external walk-around view and load up your preferred smoke colours on here. It's just that it doesn't really, honestly, make a huge difference to the tint of the smoke. I think it's, as Dan from Miltech said, a suggestion of a colour. So I'll put red on that side and green on that side. That's a contrast. Alright, let's see if that makes any difference at all. Get inside and start flying. And there's our smoke. So I told you it wasn't very obvious what colour it was. I'll just turn it off and on again. I just notice sometimes it's a little bit finicky with the way it works. Sometimes it doesn't always start immediately, but there we have smoke. Not very red and green, but it's smoke. Yay! Well, there's the township of Wanaka and Lake Wanaka, so let's try a little bit of aerobatic flying. How exciting. Now, I could maybe be a little bit faster here. I'm at 100 knots, so I'll try a roll first. When we're doing aerobatics, generally the left rolls are going to be easier for the helicopter to perform with the helicopter of this configuration. So let us get the nose up slightly, and we just push the cyclic to the left. When we're inverted, we lower the collective. Down it goes, and around the helicopter comes. I pull collective again. And we are pointing the direction that we started from. That was fun. So one more time, and just look at the timing. I'll do a proper tutorial later on aerobatics, but let's, I'm a bit slower this time. That was a bit of a failure on my part. So all the way around, pulling up on the collective now, and we're back around. So we lost a bit of height that time because I went in a bit slow. So rolls, yeah, maybe you want to be above 100 knots there. Okay, let's try a loop. We're at 80 knots now. We don't need to be going too fast into this. I have learned that a bit of left pedal helps on the way over and a bit of right pedal on the way back up, and we do need to lower that collective as well. So let's start this loop. Left pedal, aft cyclic, over we go, down collective. And now coming up with a bit of right, maybe that right pedal wasn't required after all, but we're pointing in more or less the same direction now. So not too bad, could probably do that a bit better. Let's try, just for fun, a half loop here, collective down, pull the cyclic now, collective up, and we have just done a beautiful 180, just like that. All your aerobatic manoeuvres are just some combination of loops and rolls, or maybe a little pedal turn, and yeah, there you go, it's kind of fun. Well, there's the airfield dead ahead, and what I'm going to do now is demonstrate something that's important to me with twin-engine helicopters, and that is, what is it like when one engine is off? So we've got, it looks like about 80% N1 on both engines, and so I will now kill or send engine 2 back to idle. And so what do you suppose should happen down here? Engine 2 has gone down to 68, but so has engine 1. Incorrect. Engine 1 should be increasing in output right now to keep the rotor speed up. And currently rotor speed is dropping. Both the engines are somehow tied together. One engine, an operative practice, therefore not possible. I'm going to have to lower the collective, and really we're in an auto-rotative situation right now. So I'll just practice that instead. I'll need to do a bit of a turn here to get myself onto final, so I'm going to try and not gain too much speed, and that should give me back a little bit of rotor speed by bringing the nose up. The collective is all the way down. I'm just doing a turn here so that I can get back onto the runway centre line. I'll be well off the runway centre line actually, but we'll see what we can do to fix it. Nose down yet further to maintain speed. I would have thought that I would have been exceeding the rotor speed with that manoeuvre like that, because I was coming down very fast, and this is, I'm in a not a great situation right now. I'm going sideways, so I'll just have to just go with it a little bit. Don't want to end up in that drain really, so I'm still just cruising along here. I'm just hovering on the grass. With the engines at idle, it feels like I could still fly around. Okay, so what do we conclude from that? I'm going to lower the collective now and put this thing out of its misery. We conclude that the The auto rotations, maybe not quite right. One engine inoperative, currently not right. Dan has told me they've got good faith about getting this back on the workbench and making sure that the engines are working nicely together. I would point out, if you're a simmer who starts on the runway with your engine on, or starts with the helipad with your engine on, and you just want to go and enjoy your flight and practice your helicopter skills, practice your hovering skills, yeah, this probably won't bother you. For me, with a twin-engine helicopter, I would like to see this improved so that the one-engine inoperative scenarios can be tested and you can actually fly those. You can fly the Bo 105 with one engine only. You just need to be very mindful of your performance, and if you're very heavy, then you might be coming back down to earth a little bit sooner than what you had planned, but you should be able to fly around on one engine with reduced performance. In this model at the moment, currently that's not possible. Well, let's start to have a look at the value equation of this add-on and to see if we can answer the question about, is it worth it for you? And if you found this review useful, even if you've skipped ahead to the end here, I'd really love it if you could repay my efforts in making these for you with a like, a subscribe, send a comment in there, tell me what's working well for you, what are you looking forward to with this add-on. I'd love to know. And remember, if you do sign up to that newsletter, you will go into the draw. If you have already signed up to the newsletter, you are already in the draw. So there's an opportunity for you to pick up for yourself one lovely copy of this add-on. So value. Variants and liveries, excellent. 12 variants and all of those many liveries, and sometimes there's a combination with some repeated liveries, so you can sort of choose the configuration that you like. I feel on day one there's plenty for you to enjoy there. I do note that they have released the paint kit to the community, so there'll be lots more liveries in hopefully different variants for you to enjoy in the future. Visuals. Very impressive. I think this is the nicest helicopter that we've seen coming out of the Miltech stable to date. Love the battered and weathered appearance. The panel is in very high resolution. I just love how sharp everything looks. A couple of minor things. Just the appearance of some of the dials is still a bit dark. The turn coordinator is very dark indeed, very hard to read the position of the balance ball in the turn and slip indicator. There's a slight glitch in the rotor hub animation. I'm assuming that Miltech is working on that. They are aware of it. Sound from Echo 19, and what a great operator that team is. So glad to have this pack included in there. Terrific work. Sounds real. I love the gearbox sounds. It gives a real organic feel almost to this machine, so it really makes you feel like you're flying with that gearbox sound coming up and down. Activities. Now, you might remember from the Miltech Chinook and the MH60 pack that those add-ons had a certain amount of activities kind of built in, like for instance sling loads. You could on a tablet, you could, or the key set, you could tell the simulator what you wanted to happen. You know, I want to go and pick up an object of this type over here, some boxes perhaps, and put them on a sling and then carrying them around. Then they'll fall off if you go too fast, all of that sort of stuff. Not seeing any of that in the Bo 105 add-on. Now, I have not been able to test this helicopter in career mode. I believe that's only possible if you purchase this add-on through the MSFS marketplace. And that is not going to be available to you on day one of this machine going on sale. So if career mode functionality is important to you, I urge you to hold off your purchase until it's confirmed for you whether the independent resellers, whether their versions work with career mode. That for me just remains a bit of a question mark at the moment, or it releases on the MSFS marketplace, in which case there's a little bit more guarantee that that functionality will work. So do bear that in mind. Flight dynamics and handling. Pretty good. I was very happy with how it handled in the hover. In cruise, I can sort of trim it out, and it's a little bit sensitive in the roll, but then again, most MSFS 2024 helicopters are. It can be a bit difficult to get that trim exactly right. Otherwise, it seems to be handling quite nicely. I did note that I needed a surprising amount of left pedal when I was doing the loop, and I'm actually not sure if that's realistic or not. I've not been able to find a reference to that I needed left pedal when I was going over the top. So intuitively that kind of makes sense, but I just haven't found any reference to that yet in terms of aerobatic tutorials online. I'll have more on aerobatics later on for this machine. Systems, well, I think we need to see a little bit more improvement here. That's just my opinion. This may or may not bother you. If you're the sort of flyer who is starting with the machine already running, you could probably disregard what I'm about to say. I would like to see the one engine inoperative scenario work a bit more correctly. What we found was when I cut one engine, both cut. And that is not supposed to happen. The other engine is supposed to come up and take its place and keep the rotor going up at the speed that we need it to stay at. That is not currently working in the preview build that I have. I hope they can get that sorted out soon. With that said, I mean, all the meters are working correctly and everything, all the logic seems connected up, but there's just maybe just a few things that just need a little bit of further work in order to satisfy, I think, the hardest core simmers who would like to be able to run real-world procedures with this machine. So, US $32.99 from Friday, the 22nd of May, 2026. It could be yours. And look, I've had lots of fun trying it out, and throwing it around a bit was quite entertaining. And you could definitely spend quite a bit of time perfecting your aerobatic technique. I think if you're anything like me, you'll get a bit of joy out of that. So, bo105.store is kind of the portal they've set up with all of the information to help you direct you to where you need to go to install, or you just wait for the MSFS Marketplace edition to become available. That's your other option. I hope this review has been useful for you to gauge what's important to you, and hopefully what I've shown you is my honest reaction about what's working really nicely and a few other opportunities for improvement with the BO105. I think Stratoware and Miltech have done good things in bringing this to us and offering this, and I really hope that a lot of people will get a lot of joy out of this, and especially as it continues to evolve over the coming weeks and months. So I hope I'll catch you in another video real soon. There is, of course, lots of tutorial and review content on my channel. Check that out, please. See you later.